This bike has the new Shimano Dura-Ace R9200 group set. Shimano is a big player in bike components, so when it does anything, it's notable. But when it updates its top-end road group set, well, it's almost an event. To learn more about the group set, I went to Shimano Canada headquarters in Peterborough, Ontario. There, I met with Ben Pye of Shimano Marketing, and I watched him put the new group on this frame. It's an Argon 18 Gallium Pro disc. Let's take a look at some of the features. This group set has wireless shifting. At the levers, there's two transmitters that send information back to the rear derailleur. There are, though, still some wires. Shimano has continued with its Di2 battery that sits in the seat post. So this has wires running to the front derailleur and the rear derailleur. What's the benefit of this sort of wireless, sort of wired system? Well, where you really need the juice in the derailleurs, you can always get that from the bigger battery. It has the power to move those little servo motors. But where there's less sort of power required, up at the levers, there's coin cell batteries transmitting the signal back. The big battery should last around 1,000 kilometers depending on your riding, especially the conditions and the temperatures. And the coin cell batteries in the levers, they should last about 1.5 to 2 years. The levers have changed in a few ways. At the hoods, they're just a little bit taller and they hook inward slightly. That gives you a much better grip than previous. Underneath, just underneath the hood, in that space between the bar and the top of the lever, there's more space for your fingers. Shimano says it's about 4.6 millimeters. And when I compared it with the older version, you know, there was about the same amount of room for my fingers, so it wasn't that pronounced a difference. The buttons, the shifter buttons, they're a bit longer and one of them sticks out a bit more on each side. That I definitely noticed. It makes shifting just a little bit easier and you can reach them better when you're in the drops. Another noticeable change is at the cassette. There's now 12 cogs. Now, this isn't a total surprise for Shimano. They already have 12 cog cassettes on their mountain bike side. This bike is running an 1130. And I really like the progression, especially out on the road. There's nice jumps between the cogs and on rolling terrain, it's really dialed. There's also an 1134 if you find yourself in very mountainous terrain. The chain rings on this bike are 5236. They go nicely with the cassette I have at the back. If you're a pro, there's a whopping 5440 crankset. So you gotta have massive gams for that one. The new rear derailleur is a much busier component than its predecessor. It still moves the chain from cog to cog, yes, but it has other duties. There's now the charging port. It's in the rear derailleur and that helps bring power to the main Di2 battery. There's also other functions that were previously in the junction box. So that's checking battery life and even some minor maintenance that you can do and tweaking to the system. Really, it's a nicely elegant solution by moving all this stuff into the one component. The brakes have some cool changes, especially at the calipers. There's 10% more space between the rotor and the pads. That will help keep things quieter out on the road. Also, at the levers, when you engage the brakes, there's the servo wave feature. Shimano has tweaked it so that you get a better modulation and a better engagement. I found that at the beginning of the stroke, that's where I get the more modulation that maybe wasn't there previously. But if you need to grab a mitt full of lever and stop very quickly, the brakes still have the power. There are new Dura-Ace wheels too. Their hub features a direct engagement ratchet system. So that makes them quite reactive compared with the previous models. These are the C36s. They are for the climbers. They have the shallowest rim depth out of the new set. They weigh only about 1,338 grams, so they're not too shabby for taking them up the climbs. There's also the C50s and the C60s. The C50s are for your breakaway types, all-around racing, and the C60s are where you want to be aero and stiff in the sprint. So I've only just scratched the surface of all the features. There are just too many to cover in this video. But one thing that I find head-scratching is that previously Dura-Ace was the closest to flawless group set out there. This one is better. So does that make it flawlesser? More flawless? While I mull that over, how to review these properly, do check out the Canadian Cycling Magazine website for more videos and reviews on the new Shimano Dura-Ace R9200 group set.